Elena's first sensation as she regains consciousness is a hollow stillness, like floating in the depths of a vast, uncharted sea. She opens her eyes to the sterile white of a hospital room, the faint hum of machines, and the gentle voice of a nurse beside her. But there's nothing familiar, no comfort in any of it. Panic stirs in her chest as she tries to grasp onto anything. A name, a face, a memory. But there is only a blank, echoing void. The doctors explain that she's been in a car accident, though they don't offer details about how it happened. Her injuries were mostly superficial, but the trauma seems to have left her with amnesia, a condition they say may heal with time. Elena listens, absorbing the words, but they feel distant, almost as though they're speaking about someone else. When they ask her basic questions, her name, where she lives, her family, Elena realizes she has no answers. Her voice catches, barely audible. "I don't remember anything." The words hang in the air, heavy and unfamiliar. As the days pass in the hospital, she is left with only a few personal belongings, one of which catches her attention more than anything else. Tucked in the pocket of her jacket is an old photograph, worn and slightly crumpled. In it, she sees herself, laughing in a moment frozen in time, and beside her stands a man with kind eyes and a warm smile, his arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders. There's something undeniably familiar about him, a comforting presence in an otherwise unsettling reality. Elena clutches the photo, feeling that it's her one thread back to her life, a life she doesn't remember. Questions begin to crowd her mind. Who was he to her? A friend? A lover? Was he waiting for her, searching for her, worried about her? And, most hauntingly, why is he the only face she has in this void? In the following days, she finds herself studying the details of the picture, hoping it might spark a memory. Sometimes, she feels a flutter, a warmth in her chest, as if a feeling wants to surface, but it quickly slips away like water through her fingers. Frustrated yet determined, Elena vows to find this man. If she could find him, maybe she could also find herself. Before being discharged, the doctor gently reminds her that recovery will take time, that she should not rush into remembering. But Elena's mind is set. She leaves the hospital with a single purpose: to uncover who this man is and how he connects to the empty spaces in her mind. Outside the hospital walls, the world feels both painfully vivid and alarmingly unfamiliar. Elena steps cautiously into her new reality, clutching the photograph like a lifeline. Everything around her, the sound of cars, the hurried pace of people passing by, feels distant and blurred. Despite the overwhelming strangeness, she moves forward, convinced that her answers lie somewhere beyond this fog. Her journey begins with therapy sessions, appointments scheduled to help her recover her memories in a safe and gradual way. Her therapist, Dr. Alvarez, encourages her to remain patient and open to whatever emotions may arise, reminding her that memories are often tied to sensations, places, and people rather than logic alone. One particular afternoon, while waiting in the clinic lobby, she notices a man sitting across the room. He looks like he's been there for a while, but Elena is unsure if he just arrived or if she simply hadn't noticed him before. There's something strangely familiar about him. His presence is both comforting and unsettling. His eyes meet hers for a brief second, and a flicker of recognition seems to pass between them, lingering like the warmth of sunlight on a cold day. Before she can process the feeling, he approaches her with a gentle smile. "Hi, Elena," he says, his voice low and hesitant, as if testing her reaction. "You probably don't remember me. I'm Christopher." Her heart skips a beat. The name doesn't ring a bell, but something about his face and voice stirs an echo deep within her. She manages a polite smile, masking the confusion bubbling up inside. "No, I don't remember," she says softly, her fingers instinctively clutching the photo in her pocket. "It's okay," he replies, his tone soothing and understanding. "I'm an old family friend. We've known each other for years." The explanation seems reasonable, yet Elena senses there's more beneath the surface. Christopher's eyes hold an intensity, a depth that hints at something beyond a simple friendship. But before she can ask more, he changes the subject, telling her he's there for a checkup and that he's been hearing about her accident through mutual friends. Over the following weeks, Christopher begins to appear more frequently in her life. He offers to help her with errands and suggests places they can visit to perhaps spark memories. And each time she's around him, that strange, inexplicable familiarity grows stronger. Sometimes, it's a fleeting sensation, a brief flutter of warmth or a whispered voice in her mind. Other times, it's vivid. The image of a hand reaching for hers, laughter shared under a starlit sky, and the comforting weight of his arm around her shoulders. In one particularly intense moment, a flash of memory hits her without warning. She is sitting in a quiet cafe, staring into her cup of coffee, when she feels a hand touch hers. She looks up to see Christopher, his face etched with worry and something deeper. Love, perhaps? The memory fades as quickly as it came, leaving her breathless and confused. Was this real? Did it really happen? Or was her mind creating stories to fill the void? Christopher's behavior, however, remains cautious. He never pushes her to remember, and each time she hints at these strange feelings, he brushes it off, saying they are merely echoes of a past friendship. "I'm just here to help you, Elena," he insists with a soft smile. "I don't want you to feel pressured." Despite his reassurances, Elena can't shake the nagging feeling that there's more he's not telling her. Why does his presence stir something so deep within her, something she can't name? And why does he seem to know so much about her life, about her habits and preferences, things that go far beyond the understanding of a casual family friend? As her memories remain locked, her desire to understand Christopher and his place in her past grows stronger. She wonders if, by unraveling the mystery of this familiar stranger, she might finally uncover the secrets hidden in her own heart. Days blend into one another as Elena struggles to piece together fragments of her lost past. Christopher's presence has become both a comfort and a source of frustration. He seems to know exactly what to say to calm her fears, yet he always remains carefully distant, as though guarding a secret. And each time she tries to press him, his responses are gentle but evasive, leaving her with only more questions. One evening, unable to bear the sense of incompleteness, Elena decides to visit one of the places Christopher mentioned during one of their conversations, a secluded park on the edge of town. He'd said they used to come here to talk, to relax. But as she wanders along the winding paths, she feels a surge of emotion that she can't explain, an aching longing mixed with a sense of peace. She closes her eyes, hoping the surroundings will trigger something, anything, to bring her closer to understanding. And then it happens. Like a wave crashing on the shore, a memory surges forward. She's walking through this very park, hand in hand with Christopher, laughing as they kick through piles of autumn leaves. She remembers his laugh, the warmth of his hand wrapped around hers, and the feeling of absolute joy in that moment. It's so vivid that, for a moment, she feels like she's truly there, reliving it. But just as quickly, the memory fades, leaving her breathless and disoriented. The experience unsettles her. If Christopher is just a family friend, as he claims, why does she feel this deep connection? Why do these glimpses of him feel more like moments of love than of friendship? Desperate for clarity, Elena returns home and pulls out the photo she's been carrying since the hospital. She studies it, her fingers tracing the outline of his face. In the dim light of her apartment, her eyes fall on her own expression in the photo. Her gaze is soft, her smile tender, and suddenly, the truth dawns on her. She was in love with him. Her heart pounds as this revelation sinks in. Christopher was more than just a friend. He was someone she loved deeply. The next day, she confronts him, unable to hold back the questions any longer. She brings up the memory of the park, of the moments they shared. She tells him about the feeling she had, the sense of connection that only grows stronger each time they're together. Christopher's face becomes shadowed with something she can't quite place. Sorrow, regret, perhaps even guilt. After a moment of silence, he sighs deeply, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Elena, we were more than friends, much more." A rush of emotions floods through her. relief, confusion, and a lingering sense of betrayal that he kept this from her all this time. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asks, her voice laced with hurt. He looks at her, his gaze heavy with emotion. "Because I didn't know if it was fair to bring you back to something you might not want to remember. We had complications, things that made our love difficult." His voice breaks slightly, as if the words cost him a great deal to say. "I didn't want to force you into a past that might only bring you pain." The intensity of his words shakes her. She realizes that whatever they shared wasn't simple, that there was a reason he chose to let her memories unfold naturally rather than overwhelm her with the truth. In the days that follow, Christopher's revelation leaves Elena in a haze. Her memories of him continue to surface, flashes of late-night talks, shared secrets, and stolen kisses. But with each sweet memory comes a shadow, a feeling of sadness lurking behind the love. She knows now that what they shared was real, but she can also sense the weight of something dark, something she can't yet grasp, as though their love was both a gift and a curse. As these fragments of memory continue to piece themselves together, Elena is left with a question more pressing than ever. What was it that tore them apart? And is it something she even wants to remember? With each passing day, the need to uncover the truth about their love story only grows stronger, even if it means facing whatever secrets Christopher is so carefully hiding. Elena's thoughts swirl as memories slowly surface, like fragments of a shattered mirror coming together to reflect her past. Her sessions with Dr. Alvarez have become more intense, each visit peeling back layers of her lost self. Now, with the knowledge that Christopher was once her love, these memories carry a bittersweet intensity, and she becomes determined to uncover every piece of their story. One afternoon, Elena finds herself in her small apartment, sorting through her belongings. She notices a dusty box tucked away in the back of her closet, something she hadn't paid much attention to since leaving the hospital. Opening it, she finds a journal with a soft leather cover, worn from years of use. Her heart races as she flips through the pages, each entry dated and written in her own looping handwriting. The journal begins with ordinary musings, work frustrations, mundane daily notes. But as she reads further, the entries take a more personal tone. Christopher's name appears frequently, along with descriptions of stolen moments and quiet places they'd escaped to, far from prying eyes. In one entry, her words tremble with passion. "Tonight, Christopher held me close, promising that one day, everything would be different, that we wouldn't have to hide. I want to believe him, but the world seems determined to keep us apart." Elena's heart aches at these words, filled with the longing and hope she felt in a life she barely remembers. She can feel the depth of her love for him, a love that had been vibrant yet shadowed by obstacles she doesn't yet understand. The entries become darker, laced with frustration and hints of despair. There are cryptic references to people who disapproved of their relationship and to choices she had to make. Then she reaches a particularly intense entry. "I told Christopher today that I can't live this way anymore. He tried to reassure me, saying we'd find a way, but it's as though every path leads back to the same heartbreak. Part of me wants to leave, to erase everything and start fresh. I feel trapped in a world where our love is only ever half real, hidden in corners and whispered in the dark." Elena sits, trembling. The journal paints a picture of a relationship that was both beautiful and fraught with pain, a love tested by unseen forces. She realizes that they weren't simply two people in love, they were lovers fighting against something larger, something that neither could fully control. The next time she sees Christopher, she brings the journal with her. They meet in a quiet cafe, and as soon as they sit, she places the journal between them. "I read it, Christopher," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "I remember bits and pieces. I remember feeling so much for you, but also feeling trapped, like we couldn't just be together without losing something else." Christopher's expression shifts, his gaze turning serious as he picks up the journal, flipping through its familiar pages. "I never wanted you to have to remember that pain," he says softly. "What we had was real, Elena, but it was complicated. There were things about my life and yours that made it impossible for us to be together openly." Family expectations, obligations, and decisions we'd both made before we found each other. He hesitates, his eyes filled with an unspoken sadness. You wanted to escape. I could see it in your eyes every time we met. And I knew that I could either hold on to you or let you go so you could find peace. As he speaks, fragments of memory continue to resurface. She recalls heated arguments, moments where she had pleaded with him to leave everything behind, to start over somewhere far away. She remembers the painful decision to walk away, hoping it would free them both from the impossible choice between love and duty. Elena's heart is heavy with the weight of their lost love. Why didn't we try? Why didn't we just leave? She asks, her voice tinged with regret. Christopher smiles sadly, reaching out to take her hand. Because sometimes love isn't enough, not when you're bound by things bigger than the two of you. I thought you'd be happier without the constant burden of hiding. But the truth is, letting you go was the hardest thing I've ever done. In that moment, Elena understands the depth of his sacrifice. Their love was real, but it was fragile, tied down by commitments and expectations that neither of them could escape. She feels the heartbreak all over again, both for the love they shared and for the sacrifices they made to protect each other. As the evening draws to a close, Elena realizes that the truth is both liberating and painful. She remembers who she was, a woman who loved fiercely but had to choose between freedom and love. Yet, this revelation brings her a sense of closure she hadn't known she needed. But questions linger in her mind, haunting her as she watches Christopher walk away into the night. Now that she remembers the life they had, she wonders what her heart truly wants. Is she willing to leave the past behind and start anew? Or does some part of her still cling to the love they shared, hoping that maybe, just maybe, this time fate might offer them a second chance? After their revealing conversation in the cafe, Elena finds herself engulfed by a whirlwind of emotions. The memories Christopher helped to unlock bring her clarity but also a lingering heartache. She now understands the depth of the bond they shared, but the pain of their past choices cuts just as deeply. Despite the longing that simmers beneath her calm facade, there's also a raw ache, a reminder that love, once lost, often remains a scar. Days pass in a haze of reflection, and one evening, Christopher invites her to meet him at an old bookshop they used to frequent together. When she steps inside, the familiar scent of aged paper and wood surrounds her, and fragments of their time together drift back. Quiet evenings spent browsing through shelves, whispered conversations about life and dreams, and moments when words weren't needed at all. This place was once their haven, a place where the outside world faded away, and it's clear that Christopher hopes it might reignite something within her. As they wander the shelves, memories continue to surface, but this time, Elena feels the pull of their shared pain, too. She recalls the reasons they had to hide, the looks of disapproval from others, and the conversations they'd had about the expectations that held them back. Yet, in this place that was once their sanctuary, the emotions feel more intense, rawer, and she wonders if perhaps, despite the passage of time, some things have remained the same. Finally, Christopher breaks the silence. Elena, I need you to know something. Letting you go was my biggest regret, but I wanted you to be free, even if it meant I had to lose you. I never stopped loving you, even after all these years. The sincerity in his voice and the look in his eyes leaves Elena breathless. She feels a rush of emotions, both the joy of being wanted and the pain of everything that kept them apart. Yet, beneath it all, a question rises to the surface. Has anything truly changed? She takes a shaky breath, the words tumbling out before she can stop them. Christopher, I feel it too. This connection, this love that somehow survived. But I need to understand. What's different now? What's stopping us from falling into the same cycle we were trapped in before? Christopher's expression falters, and for a moment, she sees the hesitation she once knew so well. He glances away, as though gathering his thoughts, and when he looks back, there's a sadness in his gaze. There are still things in my life I'm bound to, he admits quietly. Responsibilities, people who depend on me. But this time, I'd be willing to choose you, to find a way for us to be together. I can't promise it will be easy, but I can promise I'd try." His words are both a balm and a wound. The part of her that remembers their love wants to believe him, to trust that they could overcome these obstacles and find a new path. But the wounds from their past run deep, and a fear settles in her heart. A fear of history repeating itself, of being hurt again by forces beyond her control. A silence stretches between them as Elena wrestles with her emotions. She realizes that she's at a crossroads, that she must decide whether to open herself to the possibility of love again or protect her heart from the past shadows. She meets his gaze, her voice steady but tinged with sorrow. "Christopher, I love you. I don't doubt that. But I don't know if I can go through that pain again. I need to know that if I step into this, I won't be left behind, that we won't be forced to hide again." Her words hang in the air, and for a moment, Christopher looks as though he's about to reach for her, to hold her as he once did. But instead, he nods slowly, understanding the weight of her fears. "I understand, Elena, and I don't want to put you in a position where you feel you have to make that choice again. I wish things could be simpler, but I'll wait for you as long as it takes. I'll give you whatever time you need to decide." They part that evening with a mix of hope and heartbreak. Elena's mind spins as she contemplates the choice before her. To rekindle a love that feels both precious and perilous, or to let go and allow herself the peace she's fought so hard to reclaim. She knows Christopher's words are true. His love is real, and his desire to be with her is as strong as ever. But is love enough to bridge the gap between the past they endured and the future they could have? As she lies awake that night, Elena feels torn between the pull of old memories and the promise of new beginnings. Deep down, she understands that her choice, whichever path she takes, will define not only who she becomes, but also the life she's willing to build beyond the confines of memory. The days following her conversation with Christopher are filled with a quiet tension as Elena grapples with the weight of their history. Her memories have started to settle into place, each piece revealing a bit more about the person she once was. Yet one question remains unanswered, a shadow lingering over every sweet memory and tender moment they shared. What was it that truly drove them apart? One afternoon, as she's leafing through her journal again, a particular entry catches her eye, one that she'd skimmed over before, perhaps because she wasn't ready to face it. Her fingers tremble as she reads, "Sometimes, I feel like I'm drowning, like I've lost who I am in the shadows of who we're expected to be. I want to break free to live without hiding. But part of me fears that breaking free will mean losing everything, him, my family, even myself. I love him. But how long can love survive when it's constantly forced into the dark?" The words bring a surge of emotion, a familiar sensation of both love and despair. Suddenly, a flood of memories overwhelms her, moments she hadn't been able to recall until now. The arguments, the late nights spent alone, waiting for Christopher when he couldn't be with her, the quiet resentment that grew, the feeling that she had compromised too much of herself to fit into a life that wasn't truly hers. And then, with a shocking clarity, the memory of the accident surfaces. She remembers the night vividly now. The rain-slicked roads, her hands gripping the wheel as tears blurred her vision. They'd argued earlier that evening. Christopher had promised to be with her for a family gathering, a chance for them to be seen as a couple. But a last-minute obligation kept him away, leaving her feeling abandoned and trapped in the shadows once more. She'd left in frustration, needing to escape, to find a place where she could breathe. As she drove, the weight of their love and all its complications pressed down on her until it was almost unbearable. She remembers gripping the wheel, her vision hazy from tears, and then darkness. The next thing she knew, she was waking up in a hospital bed, surrounded by emptiness and confusion. The truth strikes her with a painful clarity. She had been running away, not just from that night, but from a life that felt increasingly suffocating. Her amnesia had been a kind of escape, a way for her mind to shield itself from the painful reality of her love for Christopher and the sacrifices she'd made to keep it alive. Elena feels the weight of this realization, a crushing mixture of sorrow and relief. She understands now that her love for Christopher had been all-consuming, a force that left no room for her own needs, her own dreams. She had lost herself in loving him, and the accident, though unintentional, had been her mind's way of breaking free from a life she no longer recognized as her own. That evening, she calls Christopher and asks to meet him at the park where she'd first remembered their love. The autumn leaves swirl around them as they stand beneath the canopy of trees, the familiar comfort of his presence mingling with the uncertainty of what lies ahead. When she finally speaks, her voice is steady but laced with a sadness she can't hide. "I remember everything now, Christopher. The accident, the arguments, the way I felt so lost. Even when I was with you. I loved you so much, but I also lost myself in that love." Christopher's face is etched with pain as he listens, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Elena, I never wanted you to feel that way. I thought we could make it work, that love was enough. But I see now, I asked too much of you. I didn't realize how much you were giving up just to be with me." They stand in silence for a moment, the memories of their past swirling around them like the leaves on the ground. Elena feels the heaviness lift, replaced by a bittersweet clarity. She has finally regained all of her memories, but with them comes the understanding that their love, though beautiful, was flawed in ways neither of them could fix alone. With a deep breath, she takes his hand, offering him a sad smile. "I'll always love you, Christopher, but I think I need to find myself now, without the weight of our past. I need to see who I am without the expectations, without the compromises." Christopher's gaze softens, and though there's a flicker of sorrow, there is also understanding and perhaps even relief. "I'll always be here for you, Elena, whatever you need. If space is what you need to heal, to grow, then I'll respect that." As they embrace one last time, Elena feels a peace she hasn't known in years. It's a painful goodbye, but it's one that frees her from the past, allowing her to move forward with clarity and strength. She leaves the park with the knowledge that love, even when it doesn't last, can leave an indelible mark, shaping us into who we're meant to become. As she walks away, she doesn't look back, knowing that her journey to rediscover herself is just beginning. The final piece has fallen into place, and now, for the first time in her life, she feels whole. In the weeks following her farewell to Christopher, Elena begins to experience life with a new sense of freedom and clarity. The memories that once felt like heavy chains now feel like gentle whispers, a reminder of a love that was both beautiful and flawed. The fragments of her past have settled, each one taking its place in her story, no longer haunting her but instead giving her strength. Elena's journey forward is slow, filled with moments of self-discovery and quiet introspection. She spends more time outdoors, walking through the city's parks and discovering hidden cafes, places she's sure she must have passed before but never truly noticed. She reconnects with old friends and meets new people, each interaction helping her rediscover parts of herself that had been buried beneath the weight of her love for Christopher and the expectations that had once ruled her life. One afternoon, while exploring an art gallery, Elena pauses in front of a painting that captures her attention. It's an abstract piece, a mix of bold, chaotic colors blended with soft, delicate strokes. The painting reminds her of her journey. The vibrant reds and yellows speak of the passion she once shared with Christopher, while the softer shades hint at the peace she's beginning to find within herself. She stands there for a long time, absorbing the beauty of it, feeling as though she's staring at a reflection of her own story. As the months pass, she takes up journaling again, filling blank pages with her thoughts, dreams, and hopes for the future. Each entry is a quiet celebration of her newfound independence, a way for her to nurture the person she is becoming. She writes about simple pleasures, a rainy afternoon, a book that moved her, a conversation with a stranger that left her smiling. These small moments, once overlooked, now bring her a sense of fulfillment she never knew she needed. One day, Elena receives a letter in the mail. The handwriting on the envelope is familiar, and her heart skips a beat as she realizes it's from Christopher. She opens it with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, unsure of what he might say. The letter is brief, but every word is filled with sincerity. "Dear Elena, I hope this finds you well and that you're finding the peace you deserve. I wanted you to know that I've thought of you often, and I'm grateful for every moment we shared. Thank you for helping me see what true love is, even if it meant letting go. I'm learning to find my own path now, and though it's difficult, I finally understand why we needed this. Wishing you all the happiness and fulfillment life has to offer. With love, Christopher. Reading his words, Elena feels a deep sense of gratitude and closure. She realizes that Christopher, too, is finding his way, learning to embrace his life without the weight of their past. The letter doesn't make her sad. Instead, it feels like a final blessing, a reminder that their love, though imperfect, had served its purpose. They had both grown, both healed in ways they couldn't have imagined, and now, they could each move forward unburdened. Months turn into a year, and Elena finds herself standing at the edge of a new beginning. She's carved out a life that's entirely her own, filled with the beauty of small moments and new experiences. Her heart is open, not to reclaim what was lost, but to embrace what is yet to come. One evening, while attending a gathering at a friend's house, she meets someone new, a man with a warm smile and an easy laugh. They talk for hours about art, travel, and dreams, and for the first time in a long time, Elena feels the quiet stirrings of hope, a gentle pull toward the possibility of love. This time it feels different, not rushed, not urgent, but natural, like a river flowing at its own pace. As they say goodbye, he asks if he might see her again, and Elena, feeling the lightness of her own heart, smiles. Yes, she says simply, I'd like that. Walking home that night, Elena feels at peace, ready to embrace whatever the future holds. She knows now that she is not defined by her past, but rather by the choices she makes in each present moment. Christopher and the love they shared will always be a part of her story, a chapter that shaped her into the person she has become. But now, she is writing her own story, one filled with endless possibilities, hope, and the strength to live fully as herself. And as she steps into this new chapter, she feels, for the first time, truly free. Thanks for being here with us. Your presence makes these stories even more special. Subscribe and let's embrace this journey together.